Jake Martinez wiped the sweat from his forehead and looked at the broken water pipe in front of him. The maintenance tunnel was hot and cramped. He had been working down here for 3 hours, trying to fix the leak that kept flooding the lower decks of Kepler Station. "Hand me that wrench, Danny," Jake said to his partner. Danny was young, maybe 22, and this was his first job on a space station. The kid was eager to learn and worked hard. "This one?" Danny held up a large metal tool. "Yeah, that's the one." Jake took the wrench and started turning the pipe connection. "You see, when these old pipes get loose, the water pressure builds up. If we don't fix it now, the whole section could flood." Kepler Station was old. It had been built 40 years ago to mine rare metals from the asteroids in this system. The metals were important for making starship engines work. Without Kepler Station, human ships would have trouble traveling between star systems. Jake had worked on the station for 5 years. He used to build houses back on Earth in Texas. But the pay was better out here, even though he missed his family. His wife Maria and their 2 kids lived back home. He sent them money every month and called them when he could. "Jake, do you think we'll ever have trouble with aliens out here?" Danny asked. He was holding a flashlight while Jake worked. Jake laughed. "Kid, we're so far from anything important that no one cares about this place. The nearest alien territory is months away. We're safe out here." That was when the first explosion hit. The tunnel shook so hard that Jake fell against the wall. Danny dropped his flashlight and it went out. Emergency lights started flashing red. "What was that?" Danny's voice was scared. Jake's radio crackled to life. "All maintenance crews, this is Commander Harper. We are under attack. Repeat, we are under attack. All personnel report to emergency stations immediately." Jake grabbed his radio. "Commander, this is Martinez in Tunnel 7. What's attacking us?" "Vrexian ships, multiple contacts. They came out of nowhere. Get to the nearest safe zone now." Jake felt his blood turn cold. The Vrexians were bad news. They were a race of aliens that looked like giant insects with metal parts attached to their bodies. They had been at war with humans for 10 years, but they usually stayed far away from human space. "Danny, we need to move. Now." Jake grabbed his tools and started running down the tunnel. Danny followed close behind. They could hear more explosions above them. The station shook with each blast. Dust fell from the ceiling. Some of the pipes along the wall started leaking. "Where are we going?" Danny asked as they ran. "There's an emergency shelter in Section 4. If we can get there, we'll be safe until help arrives." They reached a ladder that led up to the main deck. Jake climbed first and opened the hatch. What he saw made his heart stop. The main corridor was full of smoke. Bodies lay on the floor. Some were humans from the station crew. Others were strange, dark shapes that Jake had never seen before. They looked like giant bugs with metal armor. "Stay down here," Jake whispered to Danny. "Don't come up no matter what you hear." Jake crawled out of the hatch and looked around. The Vrexians had already boarded the station. How had they gotten inside so fast? The station's defenses should have held them off for hours. He heard footsteps coming down the corridor, heavy footsteps that clicked on the metal floor. Jake hid behind a damaged wall panel and watched. 3 Vrexians walked past. They were 7 feet tall and moved like spiders. Their faces had 4 eyes and sharp teeth. Metal tubes went into their heads and arms. They carried weapons that looked like they could cut through steel. One of them stopped and made a clicking sound. The other 2 clicked back. They were talking to each other, but Jake couldn't understand their language. The Vrexians moved on. Jake waited until they were gone, then climbed back down to Danny. "We can't go up there. They're everywhere." "What do we do?" Danny's hands were shaking. Jake thought fast. The emergency shelter was too far away. But there was another option. The reactor control room was only 2 sections away, and they could get there through the maintenance tunnels. "We're going to help fight back," Jake said. "The station's weapons need more power to work. If we can get to the reactor room, we can boost the power output. But we're just maintenance workers. We don't know how to fight aliens." "Maybe not, but we know this station better than anyone, and right now that might be enough." Jake's radio crackled again. This time it was Dr. Walsh from the medical center. "Any maintenance crews still alive? We need help." The main power is failing. If we don't get more power to the defense systems, we're all dead. Jake grabbed his radio. Doc, this is Martinez. Danny and I are heading to reactor control. We'll try to boost the power. Jake, be careful. The Vrexians are hunting down anyone who tries to help. They're not taking prisoners. Understood, Doc. Martinez out. Jake looked at Danny. The young man was scared, but he nodded. Let's go fix some aliens, Jake said. They started moving through the tunnels again. This time they could hear the sounds of battle above them. Laser weapons fired. People screamed. Something heavy crashed into the walls. Jake had built houses his whole life. He had never fought in a war. But right now his home was under attack. The people he worked with every day were dying. His friends were dying. And Jake Martinez was not the kind of man who ran away when his friends needed help. The tunnel ahead was dark. Behind them, Kepler Station burned. But Jake kept moving forward because that's what humans do. They don't give up. They don't surrender. And they sure don't let anyone hurt their family. Even when the family is a bunch of miners and engineers on a station at the edge of space. Jake and Danny crawled through the maintenance tunnels toward the reactor room. The space was tight and hot. Every few minutes, the station would shake from another explosion. Dust and pieces of metal fell on them as they moved. How much further? Danny whispered. About 50 meters. Stay quiet. Sound travels through these vents. They could hear voices above them. Not human voices. The clicking and hissing sounds of Vrexian speech. Jake held up his hand to stop Danny. They waited in the dark until the sounds moved away. Jake's radio buzzed softly. Martinez, this is Commander Harper. What's your status? Jake whispered into his radio. We're almost to reactor control. What's happening up there? Bad. Very bad. They've taken the main deck and most of the residential section. We've lost 70% of our people. The ones still alive are trapped in small groups. What about the evacuation ships? There was a long pause. Destroyed. All of them. We're not getting off this station, Jake. Jake felt a cold fear in his stomach. No evacuation ships meant no escape. They were trapped here with the Vrexians until help arrived, but help was days away at best. Commander, we can still boost the reactor power, give the weapons more energy to fight back. Do what you can, Jake. Harper out. Danny had heard the conversation. His face was pale in the dim light of Jake's flashlight. We're trapped, aren't we? Yeah, kid, but that doesn't mean we give up. My dad always told me that when things get bad, you work the problem. You don't waste time being scared, you just work the problem. They reached a junction in the tunnel system. Jake checked his station map. The reactor control room was directly above them. But to get there, they had to go through a section that had been damaged in the first attack. Jake opened the access hatch and looked up. The corridor above was twisted and broken. Pipes hung down from the ceiling. Water dripped from somewhere. Emergency lights flickered on and off. It doesn't look safe, Danny said. Nothing's safe anymore. Come on. Jake climbed up into the damaged corridor. The floor was covered with broken metal and pieces of wall panels. He helped Danny up, then they started moving toward the reactor room. They had gone about 10 meters, when Jake heard something that made his blood freeze. Children crying. Did you hear that? Danny asked. Jake nodded. The sound was coming from behind a collapsed section of wall. Jake climbed over the debris and found a small space where part of the ceiling had fallen down. Inside, 3 children were huddled together. The oldest looked maybe 10 years old. Hey, it's okay. I'm Jake. I work on the station. Are you hurt? The oldest child, a boy, looked up at him. The monsters killed my mom and dad. They took other people away, but we hid. Jake's heart broke. These kids had watched their parents die, and now they were alone and scared. What's your name, son? Tommy Chen. These are my friends, Lucy and Ben. Jake knew he should leave the children and complete his mission. The reactor was more important. If he didn't boost the power, everyone on the station would die. But looking at these scared kids, he couldn't just walk away. Danny, help me move this debris. We're taking them with us. Jake, we don't have time. The mission is to save people. These are people. Help me. They spent precious minutes moving metal pieces to clear a path for the children. Tommy Chen stayed close to Jake. The boy was brave, but Jake could see the fear in his eyes. "Are you going to save us?" Tommy asked. "I'm going to try, kid. But I need you to be very quiet and do exactly what I say. Can you do that?" Tommy nodded. So did the other children. They continued toward the reactor room. Jake carried little Lucy, who was maybe 6 years old. Danny helped Ben walk. Tommy stayed right behind Jake. When they finally reached the reactor control room, Jake saw that the door had been damaged. Metal beams had fallen across the entrance. There was a gap big enough for a person to crawl through, but the beams looked unstable. "Wait here with the kids," Jake told Danny. "I'm going through." "Jake, those beams could fall. You could get crushed. Someone has to do it. If I don't come back in 10 minutes, take the kids and find another hiding place." Jake squeezed through the gap between the fallen beams. The reactor control room was a mess. Computer screens were cracked. Wires hung from the ceiling. But the main control panel was still working. Jake had helped install this reactor system 2 years ago. He knew how it worked. The power output was set to normal levels, which was fine for running the station, but not enough for the weapons to work at full power. He started changing the settings. More power to the weapon systems, less power to things like air conditioning and artificial gravity. The station would be uncomfortable, but people would be alive. As he worked, Jake heard a noise behind him, a clicking sound. He turned around and saw a Vrexian warrior crawling through the gap in the door. The alien was smaller than the ones Jake had seen before, but still dangerous. It had 4 arms and carried a weapon that glowed with energy. Its bug-like eyes focused on Jake. Jake looked around for something to defend himself with. There was a metal pipe on the floor, part of the damaged cooling system. He grabbed it and held it like a baseball bat. The Vrexian made a hissing sound and raised its weapon. Jake dove to the side just as an energy bolt burned through the air where he had been standing. Jake swung the pipe as hard as he could. It hit the Vrexian in the side and knocked it down. But the alien was tough. It got back up quickly and attacked again. They fought in the small room, knocking over equipment and crashing into walls. Jake was bigger and stronger, but the Vrexian was faster and had more arms. Jake managed to hit the alien's weapon and knock it away. Then he tackled the Vrexian and they both fell to the floor. The alien's claws scratched Jake's arms and face, but he held on tight. "Danny," Jake shouted. "The red button on the control panel, press it now." Danny squeezed through the gap and ran to the controls. He pressed the red button. The reactor's humming sound got louder. Power readings on the screens jumped higher. Jake was still fighting the Vrexian when a heavy beam fell from the ceiling. It hit Jake's left leg and pinned him to the floor. The pain was incredible. He could feel bones breaking, but the beam also crushed the Vrexian. The alien stopped moving. "Jake!" Danny ran over and tried to lift the beam. It was too heavy. "Leave it," Jake gasped. The pain in his leg was making it hard to think. Did the power boost work? Danny checked the control panel. Yes, weapon power is at 150% of normal. Jake's radio crackled. "Martinez, this is Commander Harper. I don't know what you did, but our weapons are working again. We're fighting back." "Good," Jake said. He tried to move his leg, but the pain was too much. "Danny, you need to get the kids to safety. Find Dr. Walsh. Tell him—" Jake coughed. There was blood in his mouth. "Tell him I might have some broken ribs too. I'm not leaving you." "Yes, you are. That's an order." Jake managed to smile. "Besides, someone needs to make sure Tommy and his friends are okay." Danny wanted to argue, but he could see that Jake was right. The children needed help, and Jake couldn't move. "I'll come back for you," Danny promised. "I know you will, kid. Now go." Danny gathered the children and led them out through the gap. Jake was alone with the dead Vrexian and the humming reactor. He looked at the control screens. The weapons were working. The station was fighting back. It wasn't much, but it was something. Jake closed his eyes and tried to ignore the pain in his leg and ribs. He thought about his wife Maria and his kids back on Earth. He hoped he would see them again, but if he didn't, at least he had done something that mattered. The reactor was running at full power. The weapons were working. People were fighting back. That's what humans do. When everything looks hopeless, they find a way to fight back anyway. Dr. Kevin Walsh found Jake in the reactor room 20 minutes later. The doctor had to crawl through the same gap in the door, carrying his medical bag and a small laser cutter to free Jake from under the beam. "How bad is it, Doc?" Jake asked. The pain in his leg had gotten worse and he was feeling dizzy. Dr. Walsh ran his medical scanner over Jake's body. Broken left tibia, 3 cracked ribs, some internal bleeding, but not too serious. You're lucky that beam didn't crush you completely. Lucky isn't the word I'd use. Jake tried to sit up, but the doctor pushed him back down. You need to stay still. I'm going to give you something for the pain, then we'll get you to the medical center. No time for that, Doc. What's happening with the battle? Dr. Walsh was setting Jake's broken leg with a portable brace. Commander Harper used the extra weapon power to destroy 2 of their ships. But there's a big Vrexian command ship still docked to our main airlock. As long as it's connected, they can keep sending more soldiers onto the station. Jake's radio buzzed. It was Commander Harper. Jake, are you alive down there? Still breathing, Commander. What do you need? The Vrexian command ship. We need to cut it loose from our station, but their docking clamps are locked in place. Someone needs to get to the outer hull and blow up the connection points. Dr. Walsh was shaking his head. Jake, you can barely walk. You can't do a spacewalk mission. Who else is going to do it? How many engineers do we have left alive? Commander Harper's voice was tired. You and Danny are the only maintenance crew still alive. Everyone else is either dead or missing. Jake thought about this. The docking clamps were located in the most damaged part of the station. Getting there would mean crawling through twisted metal and broken corridors, and then he would have to work outside the station in a spacesuit while the Vrexians tried to kill him. I'll do it, Jake said. Jake, you're in no condition, Dr. Walsh started. Doc, if that command ship stays docked, we all die anyway. At least this way we have a chance. Commander Harper came back on the radio. Jake, the explosives are in storage bay 12. You'll need enough to blow 4 docking clamp connections. Maya Singh in communications will guide you to the right location. Understood, Commander. Dr. Walsh finished bandaging Jake's ribs. I'm giving you pain medicine, but it will make you sleepy. Try not to fall asleep while handling explosives. I'll do my best, Doc. Jake limped out of the reactor room, using a metal pipe as a crutch. His left leg couldn't support his weight, but he could still move. The corridor outside was darker now. The emergency power was failing in some sections. He met Danny and the 3 children in storage bay 12. Tommy Chen ran up to Jake when he saw him. Are you okay, Mr. Jake? You're walking funny. I'm fine, Tommy. Just hurt my leg a little bit. Jake knelt down so he was eye level with the boy. I need you to stay with Danny and be very brave. Can you do that for me? Tommy nodded. Are you going to fight the monsters? Something like that. Jake gathered the explosives and put them in a backpack. Each charge was about the size of a lunchbox, but they were heavy. With his broken ribs and leg, carrying them would be painful. Danny helped Jake put on a spacesuit. The helmet was hard to get on with Jake's injuries, but they managed it. Jake, let me come with you, Danny said. You need help. No, I need you to protect the kids. That's more important. Jake limped toward the airlock that led to the outer hull. Maya Singh's voice came through his radio. Jake, I'm tracking your position. The docking clamps are about 50 meters from the airlock, but there's a problem. The hull in that area is damaged. You'll have to crawl along some sections that aren't stable. How unstable? If you put too much weight in the wrong place, you could fall into space. Jake checked his equipment one more time. Explosives, tools, extra oxygen. His leg throbbed with pain, but the medicine Dr. Walsh had given him helped a little. Opening. Outer airlock, he said into his radio. The door opened and Jake stepped out onto the surface of Kepler Station. Space stretched out in all directions, full of stars. It would have been beautiful if not for the wreckage of destroyed ships floating nearby. Jake could see the Vrexian command ship attached to the station like a giant metal spider. It was 3 times bigger than any human ship he had ever seen. Lights flashed along its hull, and he could see more Vrexian fighters launching from its landing bays. Maya, which way to the first clamp? Follow the main hull toward the communications array. You'll see a cluster of metal structures. That's clamp number 1. Jake started walking along the station's outer surface. His magnetic boots kept him attached to the hull, but every step sent pain through his broken leg. The backpack full of explosives made it hard to keep his balance. He reached the first docking clamp after 10 minutes of painful walking. The structure was huge, bigger than a house. Thick metal arms held the Vrexian ship tight against the station. Jake could see the best place to put the explosive charge. As he worked to attach the first bomb, Jake heard Maya's voice on the radio. "Jake, I'm picking up movement on the Vrexian ship. I think they know you're out there." Jake looked up and saw shapes moving along the hull of the command ship. Vrexian soldiers in their own spacesuits, heading toward him. "How long until they reach me?" "Maybe 5 minutes. You need to hurry." Jake finished with the first charge and started limping toward the second clamp. But he was moving too slowly. His broken leg wouldn't let him go faster. The first Vrexian reached him just as he got to the second docking clamp. The alien was carrying a weapon designed for use in space. Jake dove behind the clamp structure just as energy bolts started flying past his head. Jake pulled out his laser cutter, the same tool Dr. Walsh had used to free him from the beam. It wasn't much of a weapon, but it was all he had. The Vrexian came around the corner, moving fast despite the bulky spacesuit. Jake swung the laser cutter and hit the alien's helmet. The tool cut through the faceplate, and the Vrexian died instantly as its air escaped into space. But there were more coming. Jake could see at least 3 more Vrexians moving along the command ship's hull toward his position. "Maya, I'm under attack." "How many more clamps?" 3 more, Jake. You're only 25% done." Jake's ribs hurt from the fight with the first Vrexian. He was breathing hard inside his helmet, using up oxygen faster than he should, but he kept moving toward the third clamp. The next 2 Vrexians reached him at the same time. Jake managed to cut one with his laser tool, but the other one tackled him. They rolled along the station's hull, fighting in the low gravity. Jake's helmet cracked when they hit a piece of twisted metal. Air started leaking out. He had maybe 10 minutes before his suit lost all pressure, but he managed to push the Vrexian away and cut through its airline. The alien floated away into space. "Jake, your suit is damaged. You need to get back inside," Maya said. "Not until the job is done." Jake limped to the third clamp and attached another explosive charge. His vision was getting blurry from the air. Loss, but he kept working. The fourth and final clamp was the hardest to reach. Jake had to crawl along a section of hull that had been twisted by the battle damage. Metal groaned under his weight. His broken ribs screamed with pain every time he moved. When he finally reached the last clamp, Jake was barely conscious. His hands shook as he attached the final explosive charge. The timer was set for 2 minutes. That would give him enough time to get clear if he could move fast enough. But Jake couldn't move fast. His broken leg, cracked ribs, and damaged spacesuit made every step agony. He started back toward the airlock, but he knew he wouldn't make it in time. "Maya, detonate the charges now." "Jake, you're too close. The explosion will kill you. If I don't blow these clamps now, we all die anyway." "Do it." "Jake, wait. There might be another way." But Jake had already reached for the detonator on his belt. He pressed the button. The 4 explosions happened almost at the same time. They lit up space like small suns. The docking clamps broke apart, and the Vrexian command ship started drifting away from the station. Jake was thrown backward by the blast. He hit the station's hull hard, breaking his right arm and shoulder. His helmet cracked completely and air rushed out, but he was alive. Maya's voice came through his damaged radio. "Jake, the command ship is loose. It's drifting away." "We did it." Jake smiled inside his broken helmet. The Vrexians could no longer send reinforcements to the station. It wasn't a victory, but it was something. Danny and Dr. Walsh found Jake near the airlock 15 minutes later. He was unconscious and barely breathing. "Get him to medical now," Dr. Walsh said. As they carried Jake inside, Tommy Chen was waiting for them. The boy looked at Jake's broken body and asked, "Is Mr. Jake going to be okay?" Dr. Walsh looked at Jake's injuries. Broken leg, broken arm, broken shoulder, cracked ribs, head trauma from the explosion. And those were just the injuries. He could see, "I don't know, son, but he's tough. Tougher than anyone should have to be." Jake woke up in the medical center 3 days later. His body felt like it had been run over by a truck. Dr. Walsh was sitting next to his bed, looking tired and worried. "How bad is it this time, Doc?" Dr. Walsh looked at his medical scanner. 9 fractures total. Left leg, right arm, right shoulder, 3 ribs, skull fracture, and 2 more ribs that got damaged when they brought you in. Plus a concussion and internal bleeding. Jake tried to sit up, but the pain was too much. "What's happening with the battle?" "Bad news, Jake. The Vrexians adapted. After you destroyed their command ship's docking capability, they started using smaller ships to land troops. They're hunting us section by section. How many people are left?" Dr. Walsh was quiet for a moment. 43. Out of 300. Jake closed his eyes. Most of the people he worked with every day were dead. People he ate lunch with, played cards with, talked about their families with. All gone. The reinforcements from Earth? Still 5. Days away. Maybe 6. The Vrexians know they're coming, so they're trying to finish us off before help arrives. Jake's radio crackled. It was Commander Harper, but her voice sounded different. Tired and desperate. "Jake, we need to talk. Can you move?" "I can try." Dr. Walsh helped Jake into a wheelchair. Every movement sent pain through his broken bones, but he gritted his teeth and stayed quiet. They wheeled him to the command center. The command center was a mess. Half the computer screens were dark. Wires hung from the ceiling. Commander Harper looked like she hadn't slept in days. "Jake, I'm going to be direct. We're losing. The Vrexians have taken most of the station. We're down to 3 sections, and they're closing in fast. What do you need me to do?" Commander Harper showed him a map of the station. "The main support structure. If we destroy it, we can collapse the entire mining section on top of the Vrexians. It would kill most of them." Jake studied the map. "That would also kill anyone in those sections. There's no one left alive in the mining section. The Vrexians killed them all." "What about the people trapped in other parts of the station?" Commander Harper's face was grim. "We'd lose maybe 20 people, but if we don't do this, we lose everyone. All 43 of us." Jake understood what she was asking. Sacrifice 20 people to save 23. It was an impossible choice, but it was the only choice they had. "Where are the structural charges?" "Storage bay 15. But Jake, getting there means going through the most dangerous part of the station. The Vrexians control everything between here and there." "I'll go." "Jake, you can barely sit up. How are you going to crawl through enemy territory?" "The same way I've done everything else on this station. One step at a time." Dr. Walsh checked Jake's injuries again. "I can give you stronger pain medicine, but it will make you sleepy, and I can't do anything about the broken bones. You're going to be in agony. Just give me whatever you can, Doc." Tommy Chen had been sitting quietly in the corner of the command center. The boy walked over to Jake's wheelchair. "Mr. Jake, are you going to fight the monsters again?" Jake knelt down to Tommy's level despite the pain. "Yeah, kid. One more time." "Can I come with you?" "No, Tommy. This is too dangerous. You need to stay here with Dr. Walsh." Tommy's eyes filled with tears. "Everyone I care about goes away. My mom and dad, and now you." Jake felt his heart break. This brave little boy had lost everything. His parents, his home, his normal life. And now Jake was leaving him too. "Listen to me, Tommy. I'm not going away forever. I'm going to come back. But even if something happens to me, you're going to be okay. Dr. Walsh will take care of you. Promise?" Jake looked at Dr. Walsh. The doctor nodded. "I promise, son." Dr. Walsh gave Jake the strongest pain medicine he had. It helped, but Jake could still feel every broken bone in his body. Danny helped him get out of the wheelchair and onto a medical cart that they could push through the corridors. "I should come with you," Danny said. "No, if something happens to me, these people need an engineer. You're the only one left." They loaded the cart with structural explosive charges and tools. The charges were bigger than the ones Jake had used on the docking clamps. These were designed to bring down entire sections of the station. Jake lay on the cart while Danny pushed him through the corridors toward Storage Bay 15. They had to take a long route through maintenance tunnels to avoid the Vrexian patrols. Halfway, there they heard voices ahead of them, Vrexian voices. Danny stopped the cart and they listened. 3 Vrexians were searching the corridor ahead. They were looking for humans who might be hiding. "We have to go back," Danny whispered. "No time. They'll find us eventually anyway." Jake pulled himself off the cart despite the pain. "Help me walk." "Jake, you can't fight 3 Vrexians with 9 broken bones. Watch me." Jake picked up a metal pipe from the cart. It would have to serve as both a weapon and a crutch. Danny helped him walk toward the Vrexians. The first alien saw them coming and made a clicking sound to alert the others. All 3 Vrexians raised their weapons. Jake pushed Danny behind cover and limped toward the Vrexians. He was in so much pain that he could barely think straight, but he kept moving forward. The first Vrexian fired an energy bolt that barely missed Jake's head. Jake swung his metal pipe and hit the alien in the side. The pipe broke from the impact, but the Vrexian fell down. The second Vrexian tackled Jake and they both crashed to the floor. Jake's broken ribs screamed with pain, but he held on to the alien and wouldn't let go. They rolled around on the floor, fighting. The Vrexian's claws cut Jake's face and arms. But Jake was desperate. He knew that if he lost this fight, everyone on the station would die. Jake managed to grab the Vrexian's weapon and turn it around. He pulled the trigger and the energy bolt went through the alien's chest. The third Vrexian was advancing on Danny. Jake threw the captured weapon to Danny, who caught it and fired. The last Vrexian fell dead. Jake tried to stand up, but his body wouldn't cooperate. The fight had made his injuries worse. He could feel new fractures in his wrist and ankle where he had hit the floor. "Jake, you're bleeding bad," Danny said. Jake looked down and saw blood on his shirt. The fight had reopened his internal injuries. "Get me to the structural support area. I can set the charges and then you can get me out of there." Danny helped Jake back onto the cart and pushed him the rest of the way. The structural support area was a huge room full of metal beams that held up the mining section of the station. Jake looked at the support beams and calculated where to place the charges for maximum effect. Even with his injuries and pain, his engineer's brain still worked. "Put charges here, here, and here," he told Danny, pointing to specific beams. "When these go down, the whole mining section will collapse." They worked for an hour to place all the charges. Jake had to rest every few minutes because the pain was so bad. His vision kept going blurry from blood loss. When the last charge was in place, Jake set the timer for 10 minutes. "That should give us time to get clear," he told Danny. But as they started to leave, Jake heard a sound that made his blood freeze. More Vrexians were coming, a lot of them. "Danny, run, get back to the command center and warn everyone. I'm not leaving you." "That's an order. Someone has to survive to tell people what happened here." Danny wanted to argue, but he could see that Jake was right. If they both died here, no one would know about the structural charges. The explosion might kill the Vrexians, but it might also kill the remaining humans if they weren't ready for it. "I'll come back for you," Danny said. "I know you will, kid." Danny ran toward the exit just as the first Vrexians entered the room. Jake was alone with his broken body and 8 minutes left on the timer. He looked at the structural charges he had placed. In 8 minutes, they would explode and bring down half the station. The Vrexians would be crushed, but so would anyone else who happened to be in the wrong place. Jake's radio crackled one last time. "Jake, this is Commander Harper. Danny told us about the timer. Everyone is evacuating to the safe sections." "Good. Make sure Tommy gets somewhere safe." "Jake, you saved us all. You know that, right?" Jake looked around the room. 30 Vrexians had entered and were advancing toward him. He had no weapons and could barely move. In 7 minutes, this room would be destroyed. "Commander, tell my wife Maria that I love her. Tell my kids that Daddy was thinking about them. Jake, and tell Tommy that I kept my promise. I came back." Jake turned off his radio and faced the approaching Vrexians. They could kill him in the next few minutes, but it wouldn't matter. The charges would still explode. The mining section would still collapse, and the remaining humans would still have a chance to survive until help arrived. The lead Vrexian pointed its weapon at Jake. Jake smiled and closed his eyes. 6 minutes and counting. Jake opened his eyes and looked at the 30 Vrexians surrounding him. With 17 broken bones throughout his body, he should have been helpless, should have been easy prey for the alien warriors. But Jake Martinez was not helpless. He was human. The lead Vrexian made a clicking sound that might have been laughter. It probably thought the broken human was no threat. It was wrong. Jake grabbed a piece of broken metal from the floor and threw it as hard as he could. The metal hit the Vrexian's weapon and knocked it aside. Then Jake launched himself forward, using his good leg to push off the ground. The pain was incredible. Every broken bone in his body screamed as he tackled the lead Vrexian. But Jake had learned something important over the past few days. Pain was just pain. It hurt, but it didn't have to stop you. Jake and the Vrexian crashed to the floor together. The alien was stronger and faster, but Jake was desperate. He wrapped his good arm around the Vrexian's neck and squeezed as hard as he could. The other Vrexians raised their weapons to shoot, but they couldn't get a clear shot without hitting their leader. That gave Jake a few precious seconds. He managed to grab the lead Vrexian's weapon and roll behind one of the structural support beams. Energy bolts burned through the air where he had been lying. 4 minutes left on the timer. Jake looked at the weapon in his hands. It was designed for Vrexian anatomy, with controls shaped for their 4-fingered hands. But weapons were weapons. Jake figured out how to fire it and started shooting back. The Vrexians spread out around the room using the support beams for cover. They were trying to surround Jake. But Jake knew this room better than they did. He had helped build some of these support structures. Jake crawled under one of the main support beams, using his elbows to pull himself along because his broken wrist couldn't support his weight. The Vrexians followed him, clicking to each other, in their alien language. 3 minutes left. Jake reached one of the explosive charges he had placed earlier. The timer was counting down, red numbers getting smaller every second. Jake had an idea. He changed the timer on this charge from 3 minutes to 30 seconds. Then he picked up the heavy explosive device and threw it toward the largest group of Vrexians. The charge exploded early, bringing down part of the ceiling. Chunks of metal and concrete crushed 5 Vrexians. The room shook and dust filled the air. But there were still 25 aliens left, and Jake was running out of tricks. 2 minutes left on the main timer. The remaining Vrexians charged toward Jake's position. Jake tried to run, but his broken leg gave out. He fell to the floor just as energy bolts burned through the air above his head. A Vrexian reached him and raised its weapon for the killing shot. Jake rolled to the side and grabbed the alien's leg, pulling it down. They fought on the ground, both of them bleeding. Jake's broken bones ground against each other every time he moved, but he didn't stop fighting. He couldn't stop. Too many people were counting on him. 90 seconds left. Jake managed to get the Vrexian's weapon and used it to shoot 3 more aliens, but his vision was getting blurry from blood loss and pain. He was slowing down. A Vrexian got behind him and knocked him down with a heavy blow to his back. Jake felt something crack in his spine. Now he couldn't feel his legs at all. 1 minute left. Jake lay on the floor, paralyzed from the waist down. The Vrexians gathered around him, clicking in what sounded like victory. The lead Vrexian pointed its weapon at Jake's head. Jake looked up at the alien and smiled. "You want to know what the difference is between you and me?" Jake said. He knew the alien couldn't understand his words, but he said them anyway. "You fight because someone tells you to. I fight because I choose to." 30 seconds left. Jake's radio crackled. It was Tommy Chen's voice. "Mr. Jake, are you there? Please answer." Jake managed to reach his radio. "I'm here, Tommy." "Are you coming back like you promised?" Jake looked around the room. 20 Vrexians had weapons pointed at him. In 20 seconds, the structural charges would explode and bring down this entire section of the station. "Yeah, kid, I'm coming back, but I need you to do something for me. Be brave. Be the kind of person who helps others. Can you do that?" "Yes, Mr. Jake, I promise." 10 seconds left. The lead Vrexian made a final clicking sound and prepared to fire. 5 seconds. Jake closed his eyes and thought about his wife Maria and his children back on Earth. He thought about Tommy Chen and the other survivors who would live because of what he had done here. 3 seconds. Tell everyone what humans do when things get bad, Jake whispered into his radio. 2 seconds. 1. The explosives detonated. The structural support beams shattered like matchsticks. The ceiling collapsed. Tons of metal and concrete crashed down, crushing everything in the room. Jake Martinez died instantly, along with all 30 Vrexians. The mining section of Kepler Station collapsed exactly as Jake had planned. The falling debris crushed another 50 Vrexians who had been searching the lower levels. The remaining aliens found themselves trapped in a small section of the station with no way to call for reinforcements. Dr. Walsh, Tommy Chen, and the other 18 survivors held out for 3 more days until the human rescue fleet arrived. Commander Harper had been killed in the final Vrexian assault on the command center. Maya Singh died protecting the communications equipment. Danny was wounded but alive. When the rescue ships arrived, they found 19 humans still alive out of the original 300. The Vrexian force had been completely destroyed. Rescue team also found Jake's body in the collapsed structural room. They had to dig through tons of debris to reach him. His broken body was clutched around his radio, still trying to send a final message. The station's computer system had recorded everything: Jake's conversations with Tommy Chen, his fights with the Vrexians, his final stand in the structural support room. The recordings were transmitted to every human world. Within a week, everyone in human space had heard the story of Jake Martinez, the maintenance worker who refused to give up, the man who kept fighting with 17 broken bones. Tommy Chen was adopted by Dr. Walsh and grew up to become a combat engineer just like Jake. He named his first son Jake Martinez Chen 20. Years later, Tommy was leading his own engineering crew on a space station under attack by alien pirates. When things looked hopeless and his crew wanted to surrender, Tommy told them about Jake Martinez. "This is what humans do," Tommy said. "We don't give up, we don't surrender. And we sure don't let anyone hurt our family." The pirates were destroyed. Jake's story became part of human military training. Before every battle, soldiers would listen to the recording of Jake's final stand. They would hear his voice telling Tommy Chen to be brave. They would hear the explosions and the sound of the station collapsing, and they would remember what it means to be human. Years later, when humanity encountered the Vrexian collective again, the aliens had heard the story too. They had studied the recordings and tried to understand how one broken human had destroyed an entire Vrexian assault force. The Vrexians never figured it out. They never understood that Jake Martinez wasn't special because he was strong or smart, or trained for combat. He was special because he was human, and humans don't quit. In the end, that's what the war was about. Not territory or resources or politics. It was about 2 different ideas of what thinking beings should be. The Vrexians believed in efficiency, in following orders, in accepting defeat when the odds were against you. Humans believed in something else. They believed in fighting for each other, in protecting the innocent, in never giving up as long as there was still hope. Jake Martinez had 17 broken bones and kept fighting anyway. That's what humans do. Tommy Chen kept Jake's promise. He grew up brave. He helped others. And when his time came to make a stand, he remembered the maintenance worker who taught him that being human means never giving up. The story spread across the galaxy. Even alien species who had never met humans knew about Jake Martinez. Some thought humans were crazy for fighting past the point of reason. Others thought humans were the most dangerous species in the galaxy. They were both right. Jake Martinez died on Kepler Station, but his spirit lived on in every human who heard his story. In every person who chose to fight when fighting seemed impossible. In every act of courage and sacrifice. Because that's what humans do. When everything looks hopeless. When the odds are impossible. When any reasonable person would give up, humans find a way to keep fighting. Just like Jake Martinez did with 17 broken bones in the middle of war.